Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're the show that digs into the details, pulls out the key stuff, all for you. And today, oh boy, we're tackling an automotive mystery. It's super common, but yeah, deeply unsettling for any car owner. Picture this, you had an oil change, maybe a few weeks back, right? You check the dipstick, and bam, bone dry. But no puddles on the driveway, no warning lights flashing, no smoke. Or, well, maybe you just think there's no smoke. Look, this isn't just, a little annoyance. This is your engine kind of whispering for help, or maybe shouting and ignoring it. Well, that puts you on a fast track to catastrophic failure and a repair bill that'll make your bank account absolutely weep.
And that's exactly the nightmare scenario we want to help you avoid. If we zoom out a bit, this isn't just about an engine part failing. It's really about protecting a major investment. For most people, it's one of the biggest things they own right after a house. Your car, it's complex. And unexplained oil use, that's a big red flag. It needs immediate, smart attention. So yeah, we're on a diagnostic mission today. We want to make sure you understand the signs can act before things get, really expensive.
Exactly. That's our mission. Uncover the hidden reasons, give you some simple tests you can do at home, and make sure you can walk into a mechanic's shop feeling confident knowing what you're talking about. We're going to crack this case together. So let's dive right in. Okay, let's kick off with what I sometimes call the invisible thieves. These are the sneakiest ways you lose oil, the ones that don't leave a single drop on your garage floor. First up, the positive crankcase ventilation valve, PCV valve for short. Think of it as your engine's breathing system. It's supposed to vent pressure from the crankcase, that's the bottom part of the engine, where the crankshaft spins around and all that oil.
Right. And the really crucial thing here, the bit people often miss, is how such a tiny, usually cheap part can cause such a big headache. See, the PCV valve's job is to let out gases that build up inside the engine during combustion. It's normal. But if it gets clogged up with gunk, or maybe it gets stuck shut, that pressure builds up. It has to go somewhere. And often it starts pushing oil past seals and gaskets, seals that were doing their job just fine before. Or it could stick open. If that happens, the engine's vacuum can actually start sucking oil right out of the crankcase and poof, into the cylinders to get burned. It basically becomes an internal oil siphon.
Wow, okay, so the engine turns into a vacuum cleaner for its own oil. That's definitely not what you want. And you said the signs are subtle, but that home test sounds useful. You're saying engine warm, running. Carefully take off the oil filler cap, and if you feel strong suction trying to pull it back on or see a big puff of smoky vapor coming out, that means the PCV system is struggling.
Precisely. That strong suck, or way too much vapor, it points to bad crankcase ventilation. And that's very often linked to oil loss you can't see dripping underneath. It's a great check. Costs nothing.
Okay, so that's one sneaky way oil just disappears. But let's say your PCV valve seems okay, but you're still losing oil. Then we need to look at another equally sneaky culprit. Hardened valve stem seals. Imagine these tiny, flexible seals, like little rubber hats almost, sitting over the engine's valve stems. Their job.
Yep.
Stop oil leaking down into the combustion chamber.
Yeah, and the key thing to grasp is that these seals live a hard life. They're constantly dealing with massive heat changes, thousands and thousands of cycles over the years. And eventually that rubber, it changes, gets hard, brittle, loses its stretchiness. Once they get stiff like that, they shrink, they crack, they just can't seal properly anymore, so oil starts to trickle past them, especially when the engine's been off for a while, sitting cold.
Ah, okay. So the big clue here isn't a constant leak you'd see on the ground. It's more about what happens right after it's been sitting.
Exactly right. The number one giveaway, the classic sign, is a distinct puff of blue smoke from your exhaust pipe right when you start the car in the morning, or maybe after it's been parked for several hours. Now, this smoke usually clears up pretty quickly, maybe in a minute or two as things warm up, but don't let that fool you. The damage is happening. You are burning oil. Slowly, maybe, but definitely. Every single time you start the engine, it adds up over time.
Right, that's a super useful tip for that morning startup check.
Okay.
Now, what if you're seeing that blue smoke not just at startup, but like every single time you step on the gas? Okay, now we're unfortunately moving into more serious territory.
Yeah.
This is where things get, really interesting, but also quite a bit more alarming. This, my friends, is the classic sign of worn out piston rings.
And this really highlights how these parts work. Inside each cylinder, that piston has rings. They do two main things. One, they seal in the explosion, the combustion pressure, that gives you power. Two, they wipe oil off the cylinder walls, keeping it out of that explosion. Think of like the rubber seal on a syringe, maybe. Keeps everything where it should be. But here's something interesting and maybe overlooked sometimes. why these rings might fail, especially in newer engines. We use thinner oils now, right,
Yeah.
for efficiency, and oil change intervals are longer. Well, this can lead to more carbon buildup. The rings can actually get stuck in their grooves. It's not always just simple wear and tear anymore. It can be a design challenge, almost systemic, tied to how engines have evolved, and the result is constant oil burning.
Got it. So if valve seals are like a slow drip, worn piston rings are more like a steady flow, much more aggressive oil loss. What does that actually feel like when you're driving? And why is fixing this one so much?
That's the key difference. It's faster, it's constant. From the driver's seat, you'll feel a real loss of power because that combustion force, the bang, is literally leaking past the pistons instead of pushing them down hard. So you get less compression. Your fuel economy tanks. The car just feels sluggish, weak. And the grim reality check. Fixing worn rings isn't like changing your spark plugs, it's major engine surgery. We're talking a full engine teardown, taking it all apart, replacing parts, putting it back together. It's very expensive, takes a lot of labor, which is exactly why catching oil consumption early is so critical. Ignoring that constant blue smoke, it's like ignoring a fire alarm going off in your house. You just wouldn't do it.
Okay, shifting gears slightly. For those of you listening who have a turbocharged engine, well, there's an extra suspect we need to put in the lineup, the turbocharger itself. It uses hot exhaust gas to spin a tiny turbine incredibly fast, like 150,000 RPM, sometimes even more. That forces extra air into the engine, makes more power. Amazing tech, but that's another place oil can escape.
It's kind of a paradox, isn't it? How that extreme speed and heat affects lubrication. See, the turbo's main shaft, the part that spins so fast, it floats on a super thin cushion of high-pressure engine oil, and that oil is held in by really intricate seals. When those seals wear out, oil has a direct escape route. If the seal on the cold side, the intake side, fails, oil gets pushed into your engine's air intake, it gunks up your intercooler, coats the pipes in sludge, and then gets sucked into the engine and burned. If the seal on the hot side, the exhaust side, fails, oil leaks straight into the hot exhaust system and just gets vaporized instantly by the heat.
So the key symptom for a bad turbo seal is often blue smoke, but specifically when you're accelerating hard or at higher RPMs. And here's a good diagnostic tip you might be able to do yourself. Take off the big air hose going into the turbo. If you stick your finger inside and find a puddle of fresh oil, well, you probably found your oil leak culprit right there.
Absolutely. And the bigger picture here is a leaking turbo isn't just wasting oil and hurting performance. If you let it go, it can lead to total turbo failure. That's another really expensive fix. And even worse, sometimes a failing turbo can literally break apart, sending bits of metal into your engine. Catastrophic damage. So yeah, figuring out where the oil is going is just so important.
Okay, let's take a quick breather here, because sometimes, the simplest answer is the right one. Not all oil consumption is some deep, dark internal engine mystery.
Yeah.
Sometimes it could just be a simple drip you haven't spotted yet, an external leak.
That's very true. And even these external leaks can be kind of sneaky. Two really common spots are the oil filter gasket and the oil pan gasket, sometimes called the sump gasket, like after an oil change. Sometimes the old rubber gasket from the old filter gets stuck on the engine block. Then the new filter gets screwed on top. That's a double gasket. It will never seal right. It'll leak, maybe slowly, but persistently. And the oil pan gasket, sealing the bottom of the engine. It gets baked by heat over years, gets brittle, cracks, starts to seep oil.
Right. The tricky thing is you don't always see a nice, neat puddle under the car. When you're driving, the wind blows that leaking oil all over the underside of the engine. It just turns into this like grimy, oily mess. The oil leaks onto a hot exhaust pipe or part of the engine block, and it just burns off. You get that horrible burning oil smell, but no drips on the ground. I've definitely had that happen. That phantom smell driving you nuts trying to find the source.
Exactly. Which is why the good old-fashioned cardboard test is still so useful. Park your car overnight, flat surface, slide a big, clean piece of cardboard underneath the engine area. In the morning, any drips will stand out clear as day. A fresh stain, dark black oil, that points straight to an external leak. And honestly, that's often the best case scenario. Replacing those gaskets is usually much less painful cost-wise than the internal stuff we've been talking about.
Okay, now we get to the one diagnosis you're really hoping it isn't. The big one. A failed head gasket. This one is serious. It's this thin but incredibly vital seal. It's sandwiched right between the main engine block and the cylinder head on top. It's basically the gatekeeper between critical engine parts.
Which naturally leads to the question, what's it keeping separate? Well, the head gasket has a huge job. It has to keep the oil passages separate from the coolant passages. and keep both of those separate from the combustion chamber where the explosions happen. When that gasket fails, it's chaos. Those fluids and pressures start mixing, and that is exactly what you never want inside an engine.
And the signs are, well, pretty graphic, honestly. If oil leaks into the cooling system, you won't see drips, you won't see smoke necessarily, but you'll find this disgusting, creamy, mayonnaise-like sludge under your radiator cap or in the coolant overflow tank. We sometimes call it the forbidden engine milkshake. Definitely not something you want on your toast. I mean, seriously, who knew engines could make something that gross? But beyond just being yucky, what's the immediate danger when oil and coolant mix like that?
Yeah, beyond the ick factor, that milkshake means your coolant just lost its ability to cool effectively. It's compromised. So your engine is at super high risk of overheating. Big time. Now, if the gasket fails between an oil passage and a cylinder, oh boy, the engine will start burning oil like crazy. Huge clouds of smoke, often. You might also notice the engine running really rough, misfiring maybe, or constantly trying to overheat. A key sign here, besides the smoke, is finding that same milky, coffee-colored sludge, but this time under the oil filler cap. This is absolutely not a problem you can ignore or put off. Driving with a blown head gasket, it's pretty much guaranteed to turn a very costly repair into needing a whole new engine. And the repair itself involves taking the entire top half of the engine apart. It's major.
Wow. Okay, that is a lot to take in, and yeah, some of it sounds pretty scary. But look, the whole point of this deep dive isn't just to list problems. It's to give you the power to do something about it.
Yeah.
So with all these potential suspects, what's the plan? What should you do right now if you think you're losing oil?
You're right. Knowledge without action isn't much help. So here's a simple 3-step action plan. First, become an engine detective. Pay super close attention to the clues your car is giving you. When do you see smoke? What color is it blue? White? Black? Any weird smells? Strange sounds? And check your dipstick regularly. I mean, at least every, say, 1,000 kilometers, maybe even more often if you suspect a problem. Track how fast it's going down. Get that data. It's absolutely key.
So treat your car like a mystery case. Look at every clue, no matter how small it seems.
Exactly. Step 2. Run those simple home diagnostic tests we talked about. Put the cardboard underneath overnight. Watch for smoke when you first started in the morning. Pop the oil cap, look for sludge, feel for suction or pressure. These checks cost you $0, and they can give you a huge head start in figuring out what's actually going on. You're essentially building your case before you even talk to a pro. And hey, speaking of helpful things, if you are finding this useful, hitting that like button really helps us out. And subscribing to The Deep Dive means you won't miss future episodes. Just saying.
Good point. Okay, so you've done your detective work, run the home tests. What's the final crucial step?
Step 3, and this is the most important one. Confront the problem head on. Oil consumption is never normal, ever. And it absolutely will not fix itself. It only gets worse. The longer you wait, the more potential damage is happening inside that expensive engine. So use what you've learned today. Use this knowledge to have an intelligent, informed conversation with the mechanic you trust. When you can walk in and say, look, I'm seeing blue smoke on startup and I checked the PCV, it seems okay, you're way more likely to get an honest diagnosis and a fair price. Remember, knowledge isn't just power. In this case, it's what literally saves your engine.
And your money.
It really is amazing, isn't it, how just a little bit of observation, a bit of understanding can potentially save you from a massive headache and a massive bill. It really boils down to being proactive, paying attention, knowing what the signs are and what they might mean. Absolutely. And, it makes you think that this whole process raises an interesting question, doesn't it? If your car's engine gives you these subtle warnings, signals that, once you understand them, can save you from disaster. What other areas of your life might be sending out signals, warnings, or opportunities that maybe you're not quite tuning into yet? It's just a reminder, I guess, to always be observant in everything.
Yeah. That is a great thought to end on. Really makes you think. Well, if this deep dive helps shed some light on your car's mysteries, please do us a favor. Click that like button, maybe drop a comment, and definitely subscribe to the deep dive. It lets us know you appreciate this kind of insight. Thanks so much for joining us on this diagnostic mission today.